Okay. Great. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Delilah, for monitoring the chat with Audra. Great. Okay. So in the spirit of, whoops, Joanna's coming. In the spirit of, Joanna is from MDF. So in the spirit of starting on time and ending on time, I'd love to get started. My name is Ann Ball. I'm a program director at Maine Development Foundation, overseeing the Maine Downtown Center, which serves as the statewide coordinator for the National Main Street program. And we work in 27 communities formally around the state. 10 are National Main Streets and 17 are downtown affiliates. But today's particular webinar is a special project that we are doing with the National Main Street Center, which is known as the Historic Commercial District Revolving Fund, which is a program that benefits Gardiner, Biddeford, and Skowhegan. So it's a specific program that we applied for, and these three communities, all three of you guys stepped up to apply to be involved with it, and we're glad everybody's here. We're going to give you some information today, leave some time for questions and answers, and I'm really happy to have people here from all of our communities. And I'm just going to ask our Main Street directors to wave. Melissa Lindley from Gardiner Main Street, Christina Cannon from Skowhegan Main Street, and Delilah Pupor from Heart of Biddeford. And then I am going to turn this meeting over to Lindsay Wallace from the National Main Street Center, who's going to get started with a slide presentation. And for those of you on the phone, like I said, after today's meeting, we will send you a copy of the recording, and we will also send you a copy of the slide deck. So Melissa, do you know who the person is on the phone and how to reach them from Gardiner? Whoops, you're on mute.
I didn't catch the address. It was 3-something Water Street, so I'm not sure who it is.
Could the person on the phone just tell us it's 345 Water Street? Oh, he's back on mute.
Okay.
This, if you're referring to New Hampshire, it's Mark Sprackland. It's 335 Water Street. I own that building there.
Great,
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. We just want to make sure that we can get you the necessary information. So that's why we were checking back in with you. Okay.
And just so you know, registered under the business that I run and incorporated in Maine. Actually, at one point, it's kind of complicated. We were actually using a site downtown in Gardiner as a remote office, but my email is Spark. It's a long email, Sprackland. It's a cooperative email, but you have that in the registration, I believe. Okay?
Great. We will check that. And Melissa is nodding her head, Mark, so thank you. Okay.
Great, thank you.
And I will just say Joanna Crisp is also here from MDF. I see her on the Zoom. Okay. Lindsay, I think I'm going to toss it to you.
Great. Thanks, Ann. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. My name is Lindsay Wallace. I'm the Director of Strategic Projects and Design Services at the National Main Street Center. And today I'm here with my colleague, Brittany Bass, who we work together on this project, overseeing the Historic Commercial District Revolving Fund. And we just wanted to have an information session today to share with you the basics of the program, who is eligible to participate, what kinds of projects are eligible. And we're at a pretty exciting time for this program, as we've recently been able to expand the eligibility. So we're really excited to tell you about that. But we also just wanted this to be an opportunity for you to see us and hear us and know that you can reach out to Brittany or to me about the program with specific questions. So this, in lieu of being able to be on site again, we were in Maine in December, it was beautiful. And in lieu of being able to be on site again, this is another opportunity just to kind of see our faces and hear our voices. So I will share my slides here. One sec.
Why don't you call Barbara?
Okay. Start slideshow. There we go. Cool. Okay, so we're going to run through this. It might seem like a lot of information, but the way we organize these slides is so this can be like a PDF you can look at afterward. So just trust me, it seems like a lot, but it's knowable, and we're here to help. Let me shrink this mic box. I don't know why that happened. Okay.
I heard some weird noise coming out of that. So.
Lindsay, hold on one second.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
going to mute a couple people, and also remind those of you that are not driving that you're welcome to use the chat feature if you have any questions. Hold on, I'm muting some of you, okay? You can take yourself off mute if you need to speak. There we go. And we have some new people just joining us. Okay, I think we're good to go. Okay, I think we're good to go, Lindsay.
Great. Yeah, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers too. So
Great.
We'll take the slides down, do the video, everybody can talk at that point. Cool. Okay. So just a quick agenda for the slides. We're going to talk a little bit about the program overall, talk about the borrower and project eligibility, design review, the why now, why are loans a good idea right now. We'll walk through the application to show you how to apply and talk a little bit about borrower requirements as a part of the loan. So this is just to show you where you can access information on our website. It's mainstreet.org, and then you follow that drop-down menu. You can see there on the lower left there, the Historic Commercial District Revolving Fund. That is this program that we're talking about. So this program is generously supported by the 1772 Foundation. They are out of Providence, Rhode Island, and they're really like the national leaders in revolving funds. They fund a lot of different revolving funds around the country, mostly for facade improvements, but as you'll see in this conversation today, our eligibility is a bit beyond that. In Maine, we're providing small 0% interest loans to business and building owners in the 3 Main Street America districts we talked about, Gardiner, Biddeford, and Skowhegan. This fund is really intended to provide these programs and these business and building owners, such as yourselves, this additional tool in an economic vitality toolbox. Main Street America, Main Street program, as you know, we're a preservation-based economic development approach and mechanism. So this program is really, to support that work. This is also part of Maine's overall strategy to catalyze new development in the historic downtown core. So a bunch of different goals met through this program here. Borrower eligibility. So essentially you have to be a building or business owner of an existing commercial or mixed use building within the Main Street districts in those 3 communities. You can be a tenant applicant, but you have to get building owner approval. So if you are a business owner who doesn't own the building, you just have to communicate with the building owner to get written approval to apply for the loan. And you also have to, of course, submit the loan application with the proposed project description. We'll go through all of the requirements, but basically you have to submit all of that to us, and we review it in concert with the Maine Downtown Center. One thing to note about a revolving fund that I don't think I mentioned at the beginning is that what makes this program so exciting and unique is that these are funds that as loans will, as you repay, will revolve back into a fund that will be continually used in Maine. So this fund is basically in perpetuity for use for these kinds of programs in Maine or projects in Maine. So we're starting off in Biddeford, Gardiner, and Skowhegan, strong Main Street programs, strong leaders there to get this rolling, get this program going, but your participation ensures this kind of funding and program availability in your state kind of for forever. Project eligibility. So basically there are 2 types of projects that we're funding with this fund. The first is your kind of traditional facade improvements. So basically any kind of exterior work that needs to be done, we can fund. So things like awning repair, roof repair, canopy repair, storefront doors, paint, exterior lighting, window repair, masonry work, signage. We will fund roof repair or landscaping as long as they're part of a larger program scope. So we wouldn't just fund landscaping, but if that's a part of like a bigger storefront rehabilitation, we can consider that. Just keep that in mind. The other eligible project type is an exciting addition. This is a pretty new expansion that we were able to work with our funder to incorporate into this fund. But now we're going to be able to cover projects related to COVID-19, because we know, of course, COVID-19 has really hit our downtown cores really hard. Building owners, business owners are really suffering right now. I mean, I don't have to tell you that. So this fund, really, we wanted to expand it to be able to help in those ways too. So the kinds of projects that are now eligible to be covered through this loan are things like signage for space management. So social distancing signage, like curbside pickup signage, those kinds of things to help direct traffic in your business and outside. We're also funding materials, equipment, and labor to help create additional space adjacent to commercial buildings. So outdoor seating, parklets, and pedlets. We'll show you some images. Sanitation stations like hand washing stations, those are all eligible projects. We're also funding equipment for interior space management. So things like plexiglass stands at points of sale, those kinds of interior equipment you might need to help direct traffic in your stores. We're also supporting that. So for eligibility, all work must be submitted to us in advance. I mean, this specific bullet up here is for facade improvements. So basically, for facade improvements, we cannot reimburse expenses, so we need to review the project in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards if you're doing a facade improvement project. So if you're doing that, the rule there is if you're doing a facade improvement project, we need to review before we can fund it. If you are doing a COVID-19 related project, that may be eligible for reimbursement. So say you've already done some work related to COVID-19, say you've purchased signage already, that can be eligible for reimbursement. So if you think about the two project types, one, we cannot fund until we review, right? So the work can't be started until we review for facade improvements, but for COVID-19 related projects, they may be eligible for reimbursement. For the facade improvement projects, we will help ensure that the work is conducted in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards and the local design guidelines. So just keep that in mind. We at Main Street America and Main Downtown Center have preservation backgrounds that we can help work through a design. In terms and amounts, so again, it's a 0% interest loan. The maximum loan is $10,000. The preferred minimum loan is $4,000. We say preferred because that's a little bit of a case-by-case basis, especially now. We want to make sure that these loans and funds are accessible and useful for you all. The repayment period is 36 months, so you have 3 years to pay back. Loans are paid upfront and in full, so you get all of the money at once. The loan repayment deferral period, we've actually been able to temporarily extend that to 180 days. And that, again, is to make sure that these are accessible and easy to acquire, easy to pay back. So that loan deferral, we wouldn't ask the repayment to start for 6 months after you get it. There's no match required. This is also a new change. We had originally asked for a 50% match. But given the times being what they are, again, we wanted to make these loans more accessible. So there's no match required for now. And this is a temporary change. And so this is another reason why it's good to look into this now. We'll talk about that in a second. And then again, projects related to COVID-19 may be eligible for reimbursement. And that's another temporary change that you all might be interested in. So a couple of quick example projects. So I have a couple of standard, pretty classic facade improvements, and I can show you a little bit about what we mean by the COVID-19 related projects. This was a project that we funded in Texarkana. So one other thing about this program, this Historic Commercial District Revolving Fund, is that we are working in Maine, but we're also working in Texas. So we're getting to work in a few communities across the country, but targeted in your state and in Texas. So these first projects we'll show you are from our fund in Texas. So in Texarkana, this was a pretty big, basically storefront rehabilitation. You can see in the top photo, there were missing boarded up windows and some issues with the storefront. And so essentially we just paid to cover the cost of masonry and mortar repair. The transom restoration, you can see that on the bottom photo there, that there were transoms kind of behind layers of other material that they were able to restore as a part of this. This was a vacant building that now has tenants and apartments on the second floor. New signage. So when we talk about these small loans, new signage, I mean, it's not that it can't be costly, it can, but sometimes it's a smaller project that's just kind of hard to get the money to cover. So we do cover new signage, and this is another project that we worked with in St. Augustine, Texas, where essentially they just needed to do new signage and facade cleaning. And that's great. It costs money to clean facades, it costs money to get a new sign. So no project is too small to consider. We'll put it that way. So just keep that in mind. Some other kinds of things that we're funding, so these COVID-19 related projects, are things like parklets and amenities. So it's, as you've been reading, as you've experienced firsthand, it's crucial right now that we are able to create physical space in our downtowns. And so we can fund things that can help create those spaces. So things like parklets adjacent to your business or your building, pedlets. If you look down at the bottom right there, it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see there's like a walkway that's popped out from the sidewalk. That's in Great Falls, Montana. So instead of having the seating outside on the street, they have the seating on the sidewalk and the pedestrian walkway, and a walkway for people in wheelchairs wide enough for that kind of goes around the dining. So that's another option. Think about the pedlets there. We also are funding things like the outdoor seating you see in the top left. There's the open streets concepts, those kinds of things. There are a lot of things that are covered under this, and if you're wondering what could be, we can always talk through some options. We're also funding things as simple as sanitation stations. So this is something, and I think it was Cape Charles, Virginia. We didn't fund this, but just it's a good example of, they purchased these sort of portable sanitizing stations and then zip tied them to poles downtown, just to have options downtown. So there are things like that we can look at. But again, we're also funding interior equipment if you need that. So just some things to consider. So the project design review, this applies a little bit more to the facade improvement projects, but you'll see, a lot of it is part and parcel. So we, as a part of this, to apply for it, basically you submit an application to Main Street America. And if there is a local preservation commission that needs to review any facade improvement projects, we'll be in communication with Melissa, Christina, and Delilah, and of course, Anne, to make sure that those pieces are covered too. The facade improvement projects that are not within local historic districts and those that are COVID-19 related, those will be reviewed by MDC and us. So those will still be reviewed to ensure compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards, but there may, I think in one of your communities, there's no local preservation commission, which is totally fine. That just means that design review will just be at the state and national levels. Just to flag it in case you're wondering, staff at MDC and MSA, we do have the professional qualification standards used by the National Park Service to do that kind of evaluation. So FYI. As we said, you will get these slides, so don't worry about writing all this down, but there are a lot of people on this team who are here for you to help you understand the program, to help walk you through it. So, don't hesitate to reach out. I can say this especially for myself and Brittany. We talk with borrowers, and for our grant programs, we talk to grantees all the time. Even, no question is too minor. We want to make sure you understand all of the requirements. So don't hesitate. Before I turn it over to Brittany, one thing that I wanted to call out here is to talk about loans now, right? I mean, it's a scary time to think about applying for a loan, for getting, additional money when the future feels a little bit uncertain. So I just wanted to talk a little bit through that, about specifically this fund, right? And what facade improvements and what these COVID-19 related improvements can mean. I think sometimes preservation projects might be seen as something to hold off on. They might seem cosmetic, but if you think about it, funding for facade improvements can help you with incremental maintenance too. So it isn't just about the really incredible architectural features. It's also about the maintenance of your building, which can, if you invest in that incrementally, you can really avoid costly deferred emergency maintenance, which some of you have probably had the misfortune of having to deal with. And so this fund can help with that. You know, it doesn't have to be a full-scale rehabilitation of a storefront in order to qualify for this. It could be a smaller project, as we pointed out. You know, in addition, you know, this incremental maintenance does help with energy costs. I know in Maine, you know, especially fall, winter, spring, energy costs are likely a constant concern. And the more incremental maintenance you do to the building, to that physical built fabric, can help you save energy, which helps with your bottom line, which is kind of the whole point, right? So just a couple of things on that. You know, another thing we're seeing is that, you know, traditional banks aren't often currently giving 0% interest loans for facade improvements right now, kind of for the reasons that we outlined at the beginning, that sometimes facade improvements might seem like something to hold off on, whereas we really see it as an economic development tool and a business cost savings investment. Another thing about why now, these temporary adjustments to this loan program are really designed to make it easier for borrowers to obtain and repay. And, you know, Brittany and I, as kind of the managers of the program, we work with the borrowers and we're in pretty frequent communication. So in terms of repayment and all of that, we give you an amortization schedule and help walk you through all of those pieces. So we're real people who want this all to succeed and help you through that. The other thing is, of course, in Maine, there's a relatively short construction season. And from what I hear, there's a lot of construction happening in Maine. So it's a good thing to think about now as we start researching contractors who might help with, especially with the facade improvement projects. And the last piece here, and I want to invite any of our Maine team to share any other thoughts, but you know, one thing that we're hearing a lot is that you know, real estate investments and real estate prices are on the rise in Maine. So facade improvement investments can be really valuable too. I wanted to pause there because I know we had talked kind of offline. I wanted to see if anybody had anything they wanted to share from the Maine team on any of these points. Not to put you on the spot.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
And it may not exactly apply to the folks who are on the call right now, but they could. It's just that facade improvements are basically like billboards in the downtown. They're saying, hey, notice me, my business. And right now, people have been in the 6-month COVID you know, blur. And so anything that says we're fresh, we're awake, we're open, I think is part of the reopening energy that's needed. So it obviously depends on each business, whether they're in position to make that kind of decision. But I just think right now it's kind of needed.
I totally agree, Delilah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Good point. Anybody else?
I was going to say, I'm looking around, Lindsay, to see if anybody's waving or.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, so anyway, we can talk more about that in the Q&A, but I appreciate Delilah's point. You know, one of the reasons we were excited to be able to adjust the loan framework here is to help with that kind of recovery, response, and management. You know, COVID-19 really threw everybody for a loop, right? So we fully understand that and want to help in any way we can with that. So hopefully these adjustments can maybe help get some money into your bank accounts to help with that kind of stuff as we're weathering the storm. So, so I'll stop talking and turn it over to my colleague Brittany, who will go through the application kind of step by step. Yeah, so Brittany, all yours. Just let me know when you want me to flip slides.
All right, thank you so much, Lindsay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm going to walk through the steps. As Lindsay mentioned before, there is a workflow of how to get to the website in order to get to the application. You will have these slides afterwards, after the presentation is over so you can see how to directly find this application on our website. So on the first section of the application, we ask for your general information, just about your business type, contact information you have, and what type of business. We also ask whether you're the business owner or the tenant. Once again, we are open to tenants applying as well, as long as you have a letter of approval from the building owner. Next slide. Still in this same section, we ask you guys to provide information such as the approval letter from the building owner when doing the application. And here in the second portion of it, we ask for more project detail regarding if you have received funds in the past and what type of usage you may have used the funds for. This is no hindrance on whether there's approval of the loan application. We just want to get a better background on the type of experience you have had in the past, if you had facade improvements before or any additional work done on the building. Next slide. On the second section of the application, this is the project design review, which Lindsay mentioned before. Here, we just ask for the narrative description of the project scope, construction scope of work, the construction schedule, construction scope of work with cost estimates for different items. This is primarily for facade improvement items like, for instance, window repairs or door repairs. We will want to have the cost estimate on that, and different renderings and architecture plans, and also photos of the current condition of the building and the sections of the building that you would like the work done on. Once again, this scope of work is primarily for the facade improvement that will be done, that portion of it. Then we also would ask what type of building and address you guys have, the type of entity, as we mentioned before, whether you're the property owner, the business owner, and then also basic building information that you can provide for us, such as the footage of the building, different dates in the past, like I mentioned before, that if there were any type of alterations that were made on that building before you became the building owner or the business owner. Next slide. Continuing on this section for project design review, we also ask, does this require local review? As we mentioned before, knowing that we know that Skowhegan doesn't have a local design review, but for the other communities, we definitely would inquire whether for you to check yes for the local review. In the next slides upcoming, we will show you the flow chart of how the review is from the beginning when you submit this application to who is involved in the actual review, all the way down to the loan disbursement portion of it. Then we also ask here for facade improvement, primarily the scope of work, which I mentioned before, which includes the narrative, such as the history of the building itself, when it was built, different alterations that may have taken place on the building, and what's to come. And also specific concerns that you have with the facade in general. Next slide. So here, once again, is some things that I mentioned before: the narrative description of the project scope and the purpose, the construction scope of work, the construction schedule when all this is planned to be done, and also the contractor scope of work with estimates, such as the different items from windows, doors, and things of that matter that you plan on getting improved. Also, another benefit that we would love to have is the contractor's resume to see if they have done previous work that was similar dealing with historical preservation. And once again, these are only for facade improvements, primarily for the COVID-related portion. We will have or ask of you for some of this information, but not generally for the contractor's scope of work. If they are dealing with the historical preservation, that's not necessarily needed for COVID-related projects. The photos of current conditions, historical photos, illustrations, and architectural plans, which we also mentioned is only for facade improvement only. And then here we ask if the building is listed in the National Register of Local Historic Districts. We also ask questions such as if it's endangered or in need of urgent repair. And then also we ask if there's additional funding available in your community. This is just for our information, just so we know if you have any type of partners or different sponsors going on within this project, and what's to come in the future. Next slide. Here we talk more about the financing. So we ask here on this section of the application for the estimated project cost. And then we also ask for the requested loan amount that you're asking from us. So for instance, if you do have additional funds that you're using outside of this loan, and you're using it together, we ask what you're using, what the amount that you're using from the external source, and also what amount you're asking from us. And once again, as Lindsay mentioned before, there's no match required. Once again, this is a great temporary change that we have made to the extended eligibility, and we're glad to provide that for you. And also, at the bottom, the last section of the application, we ask for your signature, your name, title, and date. Here we ask, we have the project budget. This is where we ask for the cost that I mentioned before in a little more detail. You can put that down, such as personal funds that you're using for the windows, to, if you were using that, for instance, to using the storefront rehabilitation, and how much and what amount you'll be using from us. You can break it down to show what you'll be using our funds for and what you'll be using with additional funds for if necessary, if you have additional funds outside of this loan.
And Brittany, do you mind if I just add something really quickly to this? The reason that we ask for this piece is the funder is really interested in knowing what other types of funding are leveraged for these types of projects. So even though we don't require a match, and you could have a project that only costs $10,000 and we loan that $10,000, and so there aren't other sources, and that's okay. But if your project is bigger than that, we're just curious, and you can generalize on here, it's okay, but we're just curious about other sources of funding to be leveraged so that we can report to the funder, and it's always really interesting to them and to us just to see what this investment can leverage locally. So that's why we ask that. Sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, Lindsay. As Lindsay mentioned before, a lot of different projects do have bigger schemes, and this is just a phase within the project, so we definitely would like to know more about that as well, if that is the case. Next slide. Here, as I mentioned before, is the flow chart of the process. So from submitting the application for instance, facade improvements, you submitting the narrative of the building, different costs, and contractor resume, we will receive that information or anything that you send to us. Even if it's not a complete application, we will receive that information, and in between that time in the design review with us, also Maine Downtown Center and the Local Preservation Commission for Gardiner. Well, I'm sorry, the Local Preservation Commission would be for all the communities except for Skowhegan. You will be able to, in that process, we'll be sending you questions if you are missing different things from the application, and we definitely are open to receiving that still in that process as well. So if you're missing anything, there's no issues, we'll be requesting that from you, and within that time frame, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the timeline, we'll be able to move forward into the process after receiving back answers from questions that we have from you, and also different materials that we ask if the application is not complete, which is perfectly fine.
Brittany, this is Anne. I just wanted to add something on what you just said. Brittany said, if you're missing something, we'll let you know. And I just want to say to anyone considering applying to this is a very, I think National Main Street Center is really attempting to lower the barrier for you to participate in this program. They're making it a great exchange. It's not cutthroat. If you don't have it, you're disqualified. It's really, their priority is to get this money and these ultimate improvements into the 3 communities that have been that are participating. So it's really pretty amazing. In addition to the lowering the barriers of no match and 180 days before you even have to think about repaying it, and all those new changes because of COVID, in general, I just want to add that it's meant to be a really accessible process.
Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, we definitely want to make it as flexible as possible, and for this funding to be available to everyone who needs it. That's our priority. After that design review is done with us, we will go into the final approval, just making sure that everything is received from the building owner or the business owner, whoever it may be. And then also it will go to the loan agreement and borrower requirements, which we'll talk about more in the upcoming slides. The loan agreement will just have to be signed along simultaneously with the borrower requirements. We'll show you that in the future slides as well. And after those 2 things are done, we receive those from you, then you will receive that loan in full. Next slide. All right, so more about the timeline that I mentioned. After submitting the application to us, Main Street America will review it and ask any additional questions within that 48 to 72 hours. Just going back on whether any material is missing and different questions we have about what the scope of work is in general, whether it's a larger scope of work or a smaller scope of work. And then after that, Main Street America and Main Downtown Center will then review within the next 2 weeks. And if applicable, which we mentioned before, the Local Preservation Commission will be involved as well in 2 of the communities. After that, if it's approved, we'll send the borrower paperwork for signature, the loan agreement, which I mentioned, and that will be returned within a week. And once that's completed, the required documents are submitted within 48 to 72 hours after we send that out. The disbursement will arrive within the next 2 to 3 weeks after we receive that. And then, as Lindsay and Ann mentioned before, the repayment begins in 180 days, so that is 6 months from when we give that out, and it will be on a monthly basis. That will be requiring the payments after that 6 months. And then we will have also additional to that an annual reporting that's due each year on that date of the loan agreement. Lindsay, if you want to add anything additional, am I missing anything on that particular slide?
No, I think the only thing I would say is that you can start repaying earlier if you want to. You don't have to. I mean, you have 36 months to repay. If you're ready to start repaying right away, that's fine, but you have up to 6 months. So it's not like we won't accept your payment until 6 months has passed. We can talk through that. We also, if you want your loan repayment period to be shorter than 36 months, that's okay too. We can work that out with you. So we're flexible. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. The next slide. So as I mentioned before, the loan agreement is what we'll be looking for to be signed before making that loan disbursement. Along with that loan agreement, we would ask for your credit report for the past 2 years of the business financials and a certificate of insurance as well. Following that loan agreement, we do have a promissory note and also a guarantee that will be needed to be signed as well. And then, as we mentioned before, that annual reporting, we'll be going into more detail on the next couple of slides about what that reporting and what type of metrics we'll be using as well. So every year we will be asking for a certain amount of things from you guys as far as the reporting. And then the loan recipients will be required to submit lien waivers from all the contractors and subcontractors as the work is completed. Next slide. So this is the reporting, which I mentioned before. Different indicators may be required to track annually. This reporting technique may vary depending on if the vacancy of your building is currently occupied or vacant. We do have different alternatives, such as qualitative questions that we ask. Instead of asking for instance, sale percentages if your building is currently vacant, we would ask for different changes that happen within the building, such as the changing of the building use and the different improvement to the structural integrity that is going on within the building in order to make it accessible if necessary to be open in the future. Also, different things such as the renovation that's taking place during the project time frame, and the different number of footwork and foot traffic that's going on within the building, if the building is occupied and currently open. And then also before and after photos of what the building looks like before the work took place and then afterwards. That will probably go on towards the 30 to 36 mark, depending on the speed and process of the construction schedule that you guys have.
Yeah, and one thing just to add on the reporting is that we will define what we're going to be asking you to report in the loan agreement. So while these are possible indicators, it really depends on what type of project you have, what the vacancy status is, as Brittany said. So this will be codified with you in the loan agreement, and we'll have a template for you to use. So it'll be really simple to report, and again, it's just once annually.
And now we're taking questions.
Yeah.
Nancy, thank you so much for listening and joining us, you guys.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing the slides just so we can see each other, but I can go back in if you want us to revisit any of the slides, we can look at it together, but this way we can see each other. So yeah, and ask us anything.
And at the bottom of your screen, you should have a chat feature or 3 little dots that would pop up the chat feature if you want to type in a question, or with such a small group, I'm happy to have you take yourself off mute to ask some questions. Or wave your hand, I'm good with that too. Yes, Orly. You are on mute. We cannot hear you. We hear a little squeaky noise. I'm wondering if you could type your question into the chat. No, we can't hear you. So Orly, if you want to type your question in, I'm going to ask Audra's question. Audra asks, if I apply as a business owner, can my tenant also apply for the same location?
That's a great question. Yeah, if they are 2 different projects, then yes, I think we'd be open to that. And it's one of those.
She said she should have said property owner. I was wondering that. So I think her question is, if I apply as a property owner, could my tenant also apply for the same location?
Yeah, if they are 2 different, yeah, she said exactly. If they are 2 different projects, then yes. And I think that in that scenario, it would be good for us to talk beforehand, like before you apply, and we can help you figure out, how best to apply for that. But yes, you'd be, depending on what it is, we're open to that. It's a great question. We've actually never heard that one before, so that's the thing to bring it up. Yeah.
So other questions, and Orly, hopefully you could type your question in since we are not able to get good audio on you. I'm so sorry.
So hi, this is Stacy. I do have a couple of questions.
Great, Stacy.
Thank you so much. That was really informative. I really appreciate the opportunity. And so a couple of questions. One is, would an exterior mural be considered facade improvement?
It's a little tricky. I think with that would be one we'd want to talk more about the details beforehand. If it's like a restoration of something, then for sure. If it's not a restoration, it's a little trickier because those facade improvements we're funding, like the actual physical work on the built, the historic fabric is a little more of the traditional facade improvements. But we could talk through that one, but that might be a little tricky.
Okay, yeah, it would be sort of in conjunction with a parklet situation. So it sounds like we should talk about that. Okay, and my second question is this. We are investigating a second location in Augusta, which is another Main Street community. And I'm wondering if that location would be eligible for this, or if that's a future thing.
That might be a future thing. For now, it's everything physically in the 3 districts. That's a great question, though. Yeah.
But so thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No problem. Thanks for your question.
Stacy, I do want to tell you that Augusta has an signage program.
Yes.
My internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Augusta, through the Augusta Downtown Alliance, the Main Street program has an amazing signage program that you as a property owner could apply for. And I think it's also a revolving loans fund specifically for signage. So you could look up at their website. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Good.
awesome. That's excellent. Very cool. Yeah.
Other questions? I'm trying to give a phone number to Orly to try calling. Just also looking around the room to see if I've missed anybody. Thumbs up. Anybody thinking they're going to apply? Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. Good. Okay. Great. Melissa, Christina, want to share anything? I know Delilah's shared a couple things. Delilah, anything additional from you 3? Nope. Okay. Great. Orly, would you be, you're expecting, Audra's expecting to apply. That's great. Perhaps Orly is from Biddeford, Delilah? Okay. Perhaps we could, you could connect with her to see what her question was. And if it's not something you can answer, we would be happy to answer it after this meeting since the audio isn't quite working. Okay. Great. Anything to wrap up, Lindsay, from National Main Street Center and Brittany?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, I think it's probably clear, but, you know, we're really approaching this as a team project. So we're working really closely with Anne and her team and Melissa and Christina and Delilah. So we have check-ins, was it every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks? So we'll all be on the same page. And like I said, with that contact slide, feel free to reach out directly to us, but we're also working all together. So we'll know. One thing that I don't think we mentioned, but just on this like topic of a team, the administration of the funds does come directly from National Main Street Center. So while we approach this as a team and we can answer questions and we're all here for you, the only, the funding and the administration of the funds is just between us and you. So it's really direct that way. And, you know, and communication around repayment and all that stuff comes from myself and Brittany. So we're all here as resources as you're gearing up to apply, but then the actual administration is a pretty easy one-to-one kind of thing. So just, I forgot to mention that before. Wanted you to know that. Yeah, and the other pieces, you know, Brittany and I were privileged to visit each of the communities in December, and there's each of the communities, I was really energized to meet people and to see them. You have beautiful downtowns. There's a lot of great opportunity for this. So we're just excited to be working with you and hope we see some applications.
Great. So Main Street directors will end everybody on the phone. We will make recording available and slide deck available to all of you, and look forward to you distributing it to others in your communities. And let's hope for some projects here before 2020. And thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Mhm.